Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bill Baker with Firestorm, and we're pleased to have you with us. Today we're discussing a little bit of a fishing expedition, but it's a fish with a PH. But it was such a little fish. That's part of our Crisis Coach webinar series. This is the second. We're going to be discussing this, and our discussion leader today is the president of Firestorm, Jim Satterfield. We'd also like to have you become our friend. Firestorm Solutions on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Firestorm Soul. There is a hashtag. That hashtag is Crisis Coach. Firestorm transforms crisis into value and empowers you to manage risk and crises. Firestorm expertise is crisis management, critical decision support, crisis communications, crisis public relations, and consequence management. We'd like to remind you that the presentation today is not complete without the accompanying oral comments and discussion, and this work product should be discussed in conjunction with advice from your organization's personal counsel. This information should not be considered or interpreted as legal advice or legal opinion. This webinar series today is underwritten by the College of Continuing Studies at our good friends at the University of Alabama. It's the second in the Crisis Coach webinar series for 2016. If you want to watch previous webinars, you can go to firestorm.com, where you can watch past webinars on YouTube, or you can register for future webinars in this series. We've got them now all the way out there for the rest of this year. Dr. Robert Prescott is the Director of Corporate Engagement at the University of Alabama. He's our moderator today, and we're delighted to have him with us. Dr. Bob, over to you, please.
Oh, good. Bill, Jim, thank you so much, and what a great honor to be involved in my first webinar with Firestorm. I am brand new, even though I don't look it there from my photograph. I'm brand new to the University of Alabama, having been an undergraduate student here at Alabama, but have spent the last 30 years teaching, consulting, and traveling the world in other endeavors. Most recently, I was an MBA professor at Rollins College in Orlando, Florida, and I've been invited to join the University of Alabama team here in College of Continuing Studies to help push forward engagement with corporations. My goodness, I can't think of a better venue for doing that here with the members and the folks at Firestorm, as they bring a very important message to us involving security, cybersecurity, and all the products and services that Firestorm offers. The University of Alabama College of Continuing Studies, in our corporate engagement and Bama at Work credo, are proud to be a part of Firestorm, support wholeheartedly what they offer and what they stand for. And most importantly, I think these webinar, especially the webinar today, would be right at the topic of what keeps you up at night. What are the things that you're worried about, not only from an organizational operation perspective, but from a risk management standpoint as well. So you might ask, and if you don't mind, a little bit of a 2-minute marketing plug here for the College of Continuing Studies. My job, my new job, and I'm a month old here back at the university, is to work with senior team executives and managers and frontline supervisors alike in offering our consulting services and topics such as succession planning, leadership development, and all things talent training and development. We are at the threshold of rekindling and refreshing a portfolio of both on-site customized programs, but also open enrollment public programs and conferences for the clients of our college. So we can help. The first thing we do is listen. We try not to be the field of dreams professors or the field of dreams training and development entity of the University of Alabama. before we pontificate, we like to listen. We like to listen to what the needs of our clients are and perform a comprehensive needs assessment that would be organizationally focused, job and task focused, but also individual needs focused as well. All in all, what we're trying to do is to connect the full resources of our university, our great university, to meet the organizational needs of concerns and companies like yours. So forgive this. This is the bio that my mother wrote for me. You have to have somewhat of an academic biographical sketch in order to walk your way into the halls of academia. And again, my opening joke usually is, this is the one my mother wrote for me. You know, I've had a broad array of experiences throughout my life, from corporate experience at Bell South Corporation for fairly close to 18 years, as well as now 20 years, both consulting and teaching. So if there's anything we can do to be of service to you, please let us know. Here's all of our contact information, and my wonderful partner and colleague, Brenda Truelove, who could not be on the webinar today, is a key contact, as well as myself. So reach out to us anytime we can be of need of help to you. But I'm eager to hear what all this about Little Fish. And so, Jim, Bill, back to you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Bob, and thanks for that introduction. And I'm glad your mom loves you. That's always good to hear in any side. And the background is extremely impressive, and I think that's consistent with what we see out of the College of Continuing Studies at the University of Alabama. So while you're listening to today's webinar, if there are training needs within your organization, they are a key resource and are available to you anywhere, either on campus, virtually, or in your location. So it is a great asset, and we're excited about this relationship as we enter. I don't remember whether this is the third or the fourth year of working together. My name's Jim Satterfield. I'm the president of Firestorm, and we're going to talk today around that subject of information security, as we have in others, and we're going to focus on the concept of phishing. And I like to fish, but this one's a little different with the pH associated with it. And I want to emphasize that the chance of a breach increases daily within your organization. And we're going to give you some new terms. We're going to clarify what a cyber breach is, and then we'll go into phishing in particular, and then give you some tools to be able to deal with that. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page to begin with, and that states that a cyber breach can be caused by phishing. That's one of the primary causes of it, and it's an opportunity, and they take advantage of the weakness within each of us as they go forward in clicking on to something that they shouldn't have made that connection. Your business is going to be impacted in a cyber breach, both on a personal level, an operational level, a reputational level, and finally even on a financial level. So we're going to discuss what you need to do to prepare and then to respond there. And so as that shark that's swimming down at the bottom of the page is doing, that we're going to talk about how we can avoid that shark. So we'll explain what a cyber breach is. We're going to go into detail about phishing and give you some examples and to show you specifically what to look for, what you need to do, and then give you some next steps as we continue along. And one of the next steps that I'll tell you in advance is there will be another opportunity to participate in a virtual exercise in April on cyber breach, and that will be a good opportunity for you to put your crisis management team around a table and experience what it's like to see those decisions and have to make them through that escalation process. Now, a rocket just flew up on my screen. Hopefully technology had us do that, and it flew up on yours at that point in time. I wanted to talk just for a second about that. When you see a rocket, you think about a rocket scientist. And there's a quote that's going to appear now on your screen, and it says, "I literally work with rocket scientists, and I can't get them to stop clicking on the wrong links. So what chance does your organization have?" And if you'll notice, that came out of the U.S. Army Missile Defense Center. And when Michael made that comment, that's a pretty good example of what we think about when we think about phishing. somebody doing something that they've been told not to, and that's going to result into the problem entering into your company. So let's start to walk this back just a little bit and frame the environment that we find ourselves in, and then we're going to talk particularly about this human element at multiple points in today's discussion. So you have to run your business no matter what. Now, when we think about business continuity and the types of natural disasters that come in, those are certainly prominent, and you probably spent a lot of time planning on those. We had tornadoes that hit Tuscaloosa a number of years ago and certainly did significant damage. But that comment there, 80% of the value of corporate assets has shifted from physical to virtual. And when we think about that, that leads us to figure out, well, why are we a target associated with it? In the 1930s, newspaper, the version of media at that time, did an interview with a gangster, and he was robbing banks, and they asked him, why did you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is. And today, the money is inside your corporation, and that's why you're under attack from a cyber breach position, and why they're using phishing to get into your organization. So what's the definition of a cyber breach? Now let's make sure that we're all on the same page. It represents events that could negatively impact your organization, your company, with respect to any of the following things. First, your information assets. That's the hardware, the computer that you're watching today's video on, the servers, your whole network infrastructure, the software they're using, the data in electronic and physical form. And think about it, we've got applications, and then we've got a database, and in that database is where a lot of the information that individuals are looking for is stored, and then the human knowledge, what's between the two ears of your people. Then we look at communication, storage, and processing of data by any means or any action. So it's the data at rest within your system. It's the data being transferred over the internet to another location, and it's the data that you've got sitting on one of your suppliers or vendors associated with your company there. Every one of those creates a vulnerability point. And then any unauthorized security events resulting from intentional or unintentional electronic or human actions. Yesterday we saw where a company mistakenly uploaded their database out on the open web of all of their clients. Now, obviously that was an unintentional error, but still it occurred. So it can be the bad guy coming in or a mistake that your people make within your organization that highlight this area. So when we think about cyber breach, we're thinking from this perspective. Now, it's also important to share that the FBI has stated there are two kinds of companies, those that know that they've been breached and those that have been breached and don't know it. So this is a phenomenon that you're going to find within your organization, and it will occur. You need to be ready to respond to it, and we'll give you some of those tools too. So when we think about phishing, the first line here is every crisis is a human crisis. And when Firestorm normally references that, we're talking about the impacts on people's lives associated with it. But in this case, we're not only talking about that, we're talking about it as a cause. What created this problem? And in all likelihood, it's a person in your organization. Now, there's a term that you may be familiar with called PICNIC, problem in chair, not in computer, because this is a human error opportunity here when we think about phishing. Somebody clicking on something that they shouldn't have clicked on, somebody going to a website that they shouldn't have gone to. Now, up at the top of the screen, you see a cute little fish, looks like a goldfish there, in orange with that little zero on it. And I clipped that off the Federal Trade Commission website. And in fact, that's a game about phishing that you could use to start to educate your employees. And the nice thing about going to the FTC site, A, it's safe, and B, it doesn't cost you anything. So there are some tools that you can start to use to increase awareness within your organization. Fishing is always good. It's the catching that really matters. I like to fish. Now, sometimes I'll go fishing and I've had a bad day catching, but I always had a good day fishing associated with it. And the reason that people do this is it works. That's the last line on the slide. Why do criminals do it? It works. You put those offers out, and many times I get these emails from the gentleman in Bahrain that if I'll just do this for them, they'll put $4 million in my account. If I had clicked on every one of those, I guess by now I'd be a multi-billionaire and could think about running for president also in those areas. So when we look at this, it's the catching. It's the person getting them to physically act, because when they click on it, then the malicious code comes down onto their computer, and it gives them an opportunity to establish a reader that could see a keystrokes that you're putting in and understand. Also to understand where the information is within your system and to gain access into it. By the way, just to put it in perspective, the average length of time that the criminal is inside of your database before you become aware of it is 240 days. So think about the damage that it could be to your organization with the bad guy inside your system looking at everything for over 240 days before they act and take advantage. Now, this is a criminal act. I want to make sure that everybody's clearly understanding. Phishing sounds kind of cute, but this is a criminal, and you'll see on another side, this is one of the few types of things that would happen where you could end up being held liable. Your company could be liable as a result of a criminal act committed by a third party. And that's very unusual. There are not many places that we find that type of liability coming into a corporation. Now, it starts out with a lure, just like in phishing, and that's fake-bait. And the lure is trying to take advantage of you and your trust to get you to take an action, to click on something, to go to a site, to take a phone call, to create that. So it's this fake bait that's luring you into these areas. And it could be trust or greed that causes you to act on that. So they're looking for your information so they can commit a fraud. Actually getting you to click on it isn't the fraud, it's what they do once they're inside your organization with the information that they have happened. So an attribute of a cyber breach, it's first and foremost a critical criminal act. And you can be and will be held liable for that. So if one of your customers' personal identifiable information is stolen, if your employee's personal health information is stolen, all of those events, you could be held liable. If you're a public company, you may even have liability that goes back to your shareholders and stakeholders within your organization. It's going to be a continual escalation. There'll be inaccurate information. You're certainly going to be under intense scrutiny. Your brand and reputation are attacked, and lastly, it's going to come as a surprise. And the last time a surprise was good, I was 5, and it was my birthday. If you're at work, it's not going to be a good situation for you. So phishing. Phishing can come in the form of an email. It could come in the form of a website. It could come as a phone call. And I think we talk a lot about the emails that we get or the text messages that we get in these areas, but any of these means can be used. What they're looking to do is to put that software on your computer so that they can steal that information out of your system or off of your computer. They'll also learn the hierarchy within the business, and it will give them tools to design a more sophisticated campaign to get further within it and to gain access into routing information, banking information, intellectual property, financial assets associated with the company. They're using social leverage here to get you to think about what was doing, and you're thinking that you're responding to an email from your boss, and in fact it's not. It's the criminal on the outside. They want you to click on a link, download something. Oh, click this and watch the YouTube video of the cute kitty cat walking on the piano, and then that's the link that will cause it to happen. So they're looking for you to hand over that under false pretenses associated with it. So it takes advantage of your trust. You may not be able to tell that it's the wrong thing, but it's when you visited the link, email or program that's being used, it's not real. It's not the Bank of America. It's not Wells Fargo. It's not your key supplier. It is the bad guy associated with it. As a result, they have a chance to gain access and information so that they could then target someone else in your organization and get passwords, usernames, security codes, even credit card or other financial information that's coming into your organization. So it's not the cute little goldfish at the top on the FTC site, it's that shark swimming underneath the water. And they can be wrong hundreds of times. They can be wrong thousands of times. They only have to set that hook once to have the vulnerability within your organization. So what are they looking for? The sensitive information, and on the screen you'll see a partial listing of HR and employee data. All of these things could ultimately be used to some advantage, whether it's health information or personal information, private email addresses, unpublished phone numbers, passwords, credentials. All of these things give them an opportunity to further leverage within the organization. Commercial information can be bank accounts, credit cards, strategic plans, sealed bids. Would your competitor like to know what you're going to bid on that next project? Trade secrets. Any type of data that they can use to manipulate to get to that next level. So there are a lot of scams out there, and where do you look and what do you need to do to avoid each of these? Again, that click to play relates back to the exercise that you can take, the little game that you can play on the FTC website, and it gives you an idea. So hopefully today we're going to talk about specifically what you should look for in each of these areas. Here are two things that immediately come up. Spelling and poor grammar. Now, years ago, 5 or 10, it was much worse, and you would see horrible spelling coming out of Africa or Asia or the Eastern Bloc countries. They've certainly done a better job of improving their grammar. I'm sure their English teachers are extremely proud of the improvement here. But if it doesn't look right to you, that should send a notice to you that there's some problem associated with it. And so you do not want to go any further with that email. You've seen it, delete it, get it off your computer. So if they've misused the word there, T-H-E-R-E, versus there, T-H-I-E-R, there's an example of what you might see. Now, it could be much more egregious. We could be spelling words in a different way. Checks, instead of ending with a K, could end with a Q-U-E. So think about those things if you see any mistakes within it. Now, I know my spelling is not always the best in the world. Thank goodness for spell check these days on computer systems. But that's a key indicator and one of the first things. Links and emails. If you see a link in the suspicion, don't click on it. If you put your mouse directly over it, you'll see where the link really is. So maybe it says Bank of America, but when you put your cursor over it, it will then show you it's not a Bank of America email address. So as you look at that, that's one way that you can test. So if you've got an email from somebody that you don't know with a link in it, the last thing you want to do is to click on a link from somebody that you don't know. Now, even if you know them, you might not want to click on that link. You need to look at it in context and validate that, in fact, that is what it's supposed to be. Now, threats are certainly another thing to look for. If you get an email that says, hey, your account's going to be closed unless you respond on this, we're going to put a charge on your account, we've got a problem, we're going to go to the credit bureau if you don't respond. And so threats are certainly a way that people have been compromised because they're thinking, how do I protect myself? How do I need to do this? We're going to cancel your order unless you respond on these areas. And then this whole last area of spoofing, that's where it looks like it's exactly the website that you've been used to going to, but if you look closely, the spelling is slightly different. Instead of a .com, it's a .co, C-O, or it's a slight misspelling of the name of the organization. And so they try to do it. They use the graphics that look similar to the real thing, but it's a confusion of that to take advantage of you because you're busy, you get a lot of emails, and it's easy to make those particular mistakes. So those are 4 things that I'd like you to start to look for. Let's look at a little bit more. You want a $100 gift card from Walmart. Please click here. Now, the folks at Walmart are very nice people, but I don't think they go around giving away $100 gift cards for no reason. All those comments that you heard growing up. When a deal is too good to be true, it generally is. We've all seen you've won the Irish lottery, or insert name here lottery, or you've won a cruise, or you've won another activity. Those types of things, and particularly if you didn't fill a form out at Walmart for that gift card, you didn't win it. So they're taking advantage of our trust in the name Walmart, but they're also taking advantage of our greed. Here I can get something for nothing. We suspect an unauthorized transaction on your account. To ensure that your account is not compromised, please click the link below and confirm your identity. See the threat? There's something that's happened here, and you want to, oh, I got to get this back and click on that, and so now it starts to come forward. During our regular verification of accounts, we couldn't verify your information. Please click here to update and verify your information. So all you're doing then at that point is typing in your password, your name, and giving all that access directly to the criminal that's involved. Our records indicate that your account was overcharged. You must call us within 2 days to receive a refund. Now you'll notice the subtlety here. They're looking for you to make a phone call instead of clicking on it. When you call it, it will be answered in the name of the company where you supposedly have this credit that's now going to come back in and get a refund. Remember, if you didn't do something, if you didn't go to a place where you had an account, or if you haven't made a charge recently, or you haven't been involved, why would you be getting a refund? How could it have been overcharged associated with it? If you ever have a question, go into your contacts and call the real number and verify within that basis. Now, there are several different types of phishing. The first one that comes up is spear phishing, and just like with I don't know if you've ever seen anybody do it, they've got a pole with a gig on the end of it, a pointed little fork that they're using to tack the fish there. They're looking and trying to go specifically at a targeted individual or a company. When we think about the breaches that occurred at Target and Home Depot, those came in through their suppliers. So someone targeted the supplier, and then through the supplier's contacts got into those big retailers to gain that access. So one of the things here is phishing, and we'll show you how that's going to be carried a little bit further. It is the most successful breach opportunity in the Internet today. More of the breaches are coming as a result of this type of a targeted approach where they're going in. And remember, they can be wrong thousands of times. It only takes one. Clone phishing is like that spoofing of the website, where it looks like it's something, and they could even take an email that they found through the system, put that down below, put their fake email on top of it, and that cloning aspect looks like it is appropriate, and with a link in the email then that connects you to where they want you to go so that they can then install directly onto your system the malicious software that creates the problem. So it can claim to be an original. It looks like it's original because there's a message that you already have seen below from someone else, but they're in someplace else in the system, and now they're clicking and adding you into that cycle. Whaling is like spear phishing, but it's going after a senior person within your organization. Once they have gotten in through the other phishing techniques, now they've decided, let's see if we can convert this into money. So they found and looked at the calendar, and they found out that the CEO is going to a conference somewhere else, and while he's at the conference, they then send an email back into someone in accounts payable or finance or the controller saying, hey, I was at the conference, I met our big supplier, we owe them $100,000, go ahead and wire that money, here's the wiring instructions, we'll get the paperwork to match when I get back. And you say, well, no one would ever do that. Yeah, they would, and yes, they have, and they think they're trying to please the senior level officer within the company and solve a problem. So that's where they're doing. They're targeting senior people and using that information to come in. Now, it can also just be a phone call. They want to try to get you to make a phone call to them so they can get more. They can call and say it helped resolve a problem you've got with your computer. We're your help desk service, or I'm calling from Microsoft. You're a valued customer. we want to get in, or Apple. As they start to know this, the information on your systems, it gives them more and more knowledge, and they will come in to gain that access. They're talking with you, get that information, and then let us get into your computer. We can do that reset for you. Right now, I can give you the update just so you'll get it. Speaking of updates, the majority, 70% of the breaches that occur within the 5-day period after your software vendor has announced a patch to an existing software. The reason is that they have to announce what they're fixing. The criminals see that, so they know that's where the hole in your armor is going to be located, so they can come at you directly, or they can go to some Asian organization, get the software, and then come in and attack you directly at that point. So that's an opportunity to make sure that those patches are done on a routine and an automatic basis. So we've talked about what they are. What do you do with it? First, use trusted software and set it up automatically. And there's that statement, 70% of the breaches occur within 5 days after the patch is announced. If someone's announced a patch in their software and you're waiting weeks or months before you do it, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. Second, don't ever transmit personal or financial information via email. It's not secure. If you do that, you want to go directly to that organization's site and post it there, verifying your link, not the link that appears in the email that you've received. That HTTPS, the S stands for secure. Now, while it can be spoofed, that's one thing to look at very closely to the URLs that you're using. Review your credit card and bank statements at least monthly. We at Firestorm look at ours every single day because of those areas. And then finally, use caution in opening the attachments or downloading files from emails, regardless of who sent them. Make sure that you know what you're doing and that everything is updated at all times. Now, the solutions to this become training. You've got to train your people. What should they be aware of? What should they be looking for? And what do they need to do? You'll see then another website down below, onguardonline.gov. This is the federal government, and they're pushing a program called Stop, Think, Click. The idea that before you just automatically click on a link, you have to say, you know, is this the right place? Is this from a reputable source? And in fact, that's safe. You need to be training your people on each of those areas and doing it continually because of the human error here. Remember, every crisis is a human crisis, and it's going to be very easy for that problem in the chair is to make that click and create the issue. So when we talk about awareness indicators, this is a set of sample indicators that we had done for an organization, and we divided it into 3 buckets: information, assets, and technology, brand and reputation, and user experience. And you can see some things like slow computers, things not operating quite the way they normally would, atypical permission changes. If you look into each of these areas, you will start to see multiple postings, some difficulties. By the way, in all likelihood, you're going to learn of the cyber breach in your organization from a third party. The systems aren't going to be operating the way they're supposed to. There'll be a posting out there. There'll be a question that you'll see, and then it starts to unfold. So looking at the user experience, both company employees and clients will give you an idea of where those would need to be. And you can design a similar set of indicators within your organization. As you go through each of these things, you want to have a cyber breach response plan in place. It's not a matter of if you're going to have a cyber breach. It's a matter of when you have it, do you know what to do? Pre-action is what you're doing today. That's building your plans, thinking about it, getting additional information, and training. It goes in its own set, what you need to take place, what you do to do the impact assessment, how you respond and recover, and then the post-recovery area would be related to the consequence management and hot wash of what went wrong. Now, we at Firestorm follow a Predict.Plan.Perform methodology. Understand what your vulnerabilities are, what their impacts, what are you going to monitor, and what are the triggers for action. Definitely true in the cyber area, just as it would be in any other areas. So the plan would be, well, how are we going to respond? And also under the perform, training your people, having your threat intelligence program coming in place, setting up an intelligence network to monitor what's being said, and then having the ability to respond. One new emergence in this field that you should consider is the role that cyber insurance plays, and that brings to you specific assets in terms of being able to deal with them. So what must you do? First, have good processes and controls. A lot of times in companies, we give access just because somebody wanted to have access. Well, I need to know the password to get into that system. If they don't need it for their job, you do not want to do that. Just because someone has a senior title doesn't mean they should have administrative access. When we look back at past breaches, we find that sometimes admin passwords have been left on old servers, and they can be breached easily in coming into play. Even companies that are sophisticated have been vulnerable to that. You want to monitor your access, so suddenly if someone it's a low level is starting to have access into other areas, you need to be aware of that to take steps. The train that we've talked about, everyone in your company needs to know what to look for, what to do, and what not to do. We also have to look at the devices that are connected to our network and the access. By the way, the gaming sites that our children use are loaded with malicious software, and that's a key chink in the armor. So if they're using a device that has access into the company, then that could certainly create the problem. And then you see the bold down there. Be prepared. Being prepared is more important than believing you can stop it. You're not going to stop this. It's going to happen. You need to be able to demonstrate that you've taken a degree of reasonable care, or then you're going to place your company in greater vulnerability. So do your people know what not to do? That's the training that we talked about. I'd recommend that you participate in the cyber breach, virtual cyber breach exercise in April. It's April the 19th at 2 p.m. and there is no cost. It's a 2-hour cyber breach exercise. It will be different than the one that we did in December. By the way, we had 890 companies that participated in the December cyber breach exercise, over half of the Fortune 500. So this is an opportunity at no cost for you to see how prepared you are. I think you can contact us. We'd be glad to help you with an information security assessment to see how you're doing relative to standards and best practices. I would encourage you to align your plans to those best practices, and then design this intelligence network and schedule training as you would need. There is a brief from today's webinar that you can download on the Firestorm website, and so if you will receive an email after today giving you a direct link to that, so it will be an opportunity for you to get it and share. We've also recorded today's webinar, so it will be available if you want to listen or share it with anyone else within your organization as an additional training tool. I'd like to thank Bob for joining us today from the College of Continuing Studies at the University of Alabama, and I want to reinforce what they can do to help your company in each of the areas that we've been talking about. Bob, do you have any last comments you want to add on this topic that we can discuss today?
Jim and Bill, thank you. What an informational session we've had today, and I'm struck by the whole concept of train, train, train. And of course, that's the business that we're in, is helping organizations train their workforce. But I was really shocked to see how a little fish can turn into a really big fish. So thank you for all this information and that ongoing list of best practices.
We appreciate that and look forward to talking with you again. If you would like to view this webinar again, or if you would like to share it with anyone in your company, you can do that by going to Firestorm.com. You will also be able to get the brief from today's webinar. If you've got a question on this or other topics, shoot us an email at webinars@Firestorm.com, or you can pick up the phone and call us at 800-321-2219. When we think about cyber breach, this is probably one of the greatest exposures that we face within our organizations and country today. There have been numerous books written about the vulnerability in the grid, the exposure that we have for having that taken over. I saw an interview this past week with the director of the CIA, and as he was talking about it, He said that there are those that have the ability to shut down our grid don't have the intent to do it. Those with the intent don't yet have that ability. But if you take away our electricity, we move back in time over 150 years. It would be a significant blow to our organization. Now, I know as business continuity professionals, and as you're thinking about this, you're planning and being prepared for the natural disaster elements that occur where you are. If you're in Florida, maybe it's the hurricane. If you're in California, maybe it's the earthquake or flooding or tornadoes. We've seen episodes of workplace violence certainly escalate. The OSHA has defined that as a known hazard, and you're required to have a plan there. And yet there are 2 million episodes of workplace violence annually in the United States. Most of these events, when they happen, aren't enough to destroy your company. Cyber breach is a little different. It's a singular event that has the power to completely destroy your brand and reputation and your financial capabilities. What we've done in the past is we've seen cyber breach dealt with as if it was an IT problem. You know, our IT guys are handling that. They got firewalls and they got forensics, and they're monitoring all of those elements. I'd like you to take away from today's conversation that a cyber breach and the cybersecurity, those are business problems, not IT problems. And when we think about our business continuity plan, then we need to make sure that we have embedded that within it. You need to add a section for a cyber breach response plan that's going to be talking about what we're going to do and what are we going to say. The crisis management and critical business decisions are extreme in those types of environments. And just like with any other crisis, most of what you learn initially is going to be wrong, and you're going to find yourself under great pressure to act. So having those steps laid out in each of those 5 stages, pre-action, onset, impact assessment, response and recovery, and consequence management become very critical. Also then tying in it would be a cyber breach crisis communications plan with message maps. What are we going to say? What are we going to do? As in any crisis, our first communications will be coordination. What do our people internally and externally need to know? The second form of communications will be in crisis areas related to our brand and reputation. And the third will be in the area of compliance. What do we have to do? Who do we have to notify that their identity has been stolen? And the information would occur. The time to think about this is today, not tomorrow when the event happens. Thank you for joining us in the webinar series. We look forward to bringing you this each month. So until next month, have a wonderful day, and let's just don't click on those links and the emails that are coming in. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.